Bucknutters. It is Thursday, October 20th, 2016. I'm Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change, coming to you from a rainy, crappy, gray Gem City. Steve, though you are a Cubs fan, the skies are gray.
Good morning, Daniel. The Cubs, the sky is starting to part for the Cubs again. Big win for them last night. Rooting on the Indians also. I like to root for Bill Kurelich's team so my team can run into them. And during the NBA season, my team's just the underdog against his team. So looking to flip the tables here and have the Cubs be the favorite to beat the Indians, where the Pacers are not the favorite to beat the Cavs. But Bill Kurlich, mark my words, the Pacers are better this year, and they'll have a shot to give the Cavs hell in the Eastern Conference this year.
As it turns out, your prediction there is quite faulty, but I'm not going to waste people's time detailing why. What I will waste people's time with is more recruiting chatter. You had a chance this week to speak to Ohio State's top defensive lineman on the board, Jay Tufele, out of the state of Utah. I know what you wrote. I'm sure everyone read it. What's your vibe, though, for having the chance to speak to him about where you think he's going to end up?
My gut says it's an Ohio State-Michigan battle for Jay Tufele, the nation's number 2 defensive tackle per 24/7 Sports, but I don't want to sleep on Washington or Utah for him right now. Utah obviously being down the road, they're playing well. I mean, I don't think he's going to go there, but you can't sleep on him, you know. And then Washington's playing at a high level. They have a lot of people in the locker room that Jay Tufele can certainly relate to. He's known the defensive line coach at Washington for a long time, dating back to his days at Utah State. So a lot of connections there. I don't think people are talking about Washington enough with Jay Tufele. Probably his best friend in the process is Marlon Tupatoa. I guarantee I just butchered that. They're both playing in the Army game. Marlon's committed to Washington, another top 100 defensive lineman. So a lot of reasons to like Washington, but Ohio State, Michigan, there's a different kind of prestige level with both of those schools. Both of those schools are not going to be out-recruited when it comes to Jay Tufele. You talk about Michigan, they're certainly doing a good job with him. Greg Madison was just out there this week. Then you got Urban Meyer and Larry Johnson recruiting him for Ohio State, and they're certainly going to do everything they can to land this priority target. So the prestige level and the recruiting prowess of those two schools, that's why my gut says Michigan or Ohio State, but definitely don't sleep on Washington. Wouldn't be surprised if you ended up out there, and then Utah's right down the road. So I'll say they're in it as well. He includes USC in his top 5. But Jay Tufele is going to be a national signing day decision, so he's still got another half of the season to watch. He's going to get a chance to go experience game atmospheres at Michigan, and then he's looking to take his official to Ohio State for the Michigan game. So he's going to get a chance to see the Wolverines twice this year. Obviously, Ohio State fans and Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners are hoping he sees Michigan take an L at the end there, because they're certainly not going to take an L this weekend with they got Illinois. They're going to crush Illinois.
That's going to be an interesting battle for sure. Man, a lot's coming down to the game, that's for sure. Another big boy that you had a chance to actually see in person, one of the Buckeye State's finest offensive linemen really to come through here in several decades, one of them at least. We have Josh Myers this year, who I think is off the charts. Not that far down the road at Fairfield, Jackson Carman, class of 2018. You had a chance to spend some time with him at the high school, talk to him. Break down what you thought of him. It's always a little bit different when you get a chance to spend some time with a guy in person, so let us know what you think.
Yeah, I spent about 2 hours at Fairfield High School this week with a lunch in between. I'm going to have a feature coming out on Jackson Carman later this week. The nation's number 3 offensive tackle per 24/7 Sports, number 1 player in the state. Him and Josh Myers have a really good connection, friendship. I think that they'll both eventually be starters together on the Ohio State offensive line. There's, Jackson reiterated to me what he's been saying for a long time. The Buckeyes remain number 1. He's visiting Alabama this week, and I think he wants to enjoy the recruiting process. He says he won't decide till after his senior year. I don't care if he doesn't even sign a letter of intent. I think he's going to go to Ohio State. Ohio State's going to be very tough to beat. Things he pointed to, his relationship with Coach Stud, Coach Meyer, he says it's different than just a typical recruiting deal. You know, he already feels like family with the Ohio State program. Again, Ohio State's near impossible to beat for an in-state recruit that they want unless the kid goes to a Catholic private school.
In Cincinnati or Cleveland.
It's just it's just going to be tough to beat Ohio State because, for one, it's Ohio State. For two, the Ohio State staff's going to do such a great job of building that rapport and that connection, you know, that it's going to be tough to overcome. That doesn't mean that other schools won't make it interesting. And Michigan State made it interesting with the Mirror Reap. You'll have your occasional in-state battle where it'll be interesting, but it's going to be damn near impossible to beat Ohio State for guys like Jackson Carman.
Does he pass the eye test?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a thick, good-looking offensive lineman. He doesn't appear to have any bad weight on him. I mean, he damn near has abs, great feet, just a powerful tone setter at the line of scrimmage. I could see him playing center or guard on the next level as well. I told him that his film kind of reminded me of Wyatt Davis with the tenacity that they both play with. Jackson Carman loves to pull, and he loves to just destroy linebackers coming around on the end of that pull. He's just a ferocious player. They've stopped keeping track of knockdowns at Fairfield, basically, because he's getting double-digit knockdowns a game. I mean, he just puts defenders on his back and he stays on his feet, which shows you that athleticism that he has. He's not just some big offensive lineman that leans on people and falls on them. He knocks them down and then he's hunting for more.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm so super optimistic about the Buckeyes going forward, and there are many reasons, is their offensive line recruiting. When you think of having, you know, Myers and, like you mentioned, Wyatt Davis and
Moretti,
eventually Carman up there, and Moretti and Carman up there.
Moretti may be better than all of them.
I mean, it's incredible. I think you've got some versatility there. They're good athletes.
No question. No question.
So
versatility.
Yeah.
You got just hard to play that position at a high level. You got to be a hard-nosed guy. You know, I'll never forget talking to Mike Jones, who was a 4-year starter at Iowa. He was a freshman All-American, had a good career there. It's like, Steve, the thing you don't know about offensive line when you're recruiting them is that when they're on the prep level, they're so used to just being so much bigger and typically more athletic than the guys they're blocking that they've never really been hit. So when they get to college and you walk in at 18 years old and you get to Ohio State or a place like that and you walk onto the field and Joey Bosa's 21 years old and you're 18 and he rakes you across the face the first time in that first fall camp, he's like, guys check out for 4 years right then and there. That ain't for them, you know. So you look at the guys Ohio State's bringing in, and it appears that they all have that toughness that you need to thrive as well. You look at Michael Jordan right now, you throw Michael Jordan in with these guys coming in behind him. Like you said, it's got a shot to be very, very special. But, I mean, Ohio State, it's as well oiled as it gets, man. I mean, we're just, you know, they're going to be in the playoff hunt every year. There's no down years anymore. I mean, a down year for Ohio State under Urban Meyer is, in my opinion, 2 losses, and that would include a bowl loss probably. You know, I mean, I just don't see them losing very often, you know, and going into this season, you know, this season, if you ever had any question marks about an Ohio State football team, and obviously no one listening to this show does, but people from the outside, how quickly they can develop and get new guys in and get them ready to play and play at a high level. It's just insane. There's going to be no more down years at Ohio State moving forward, because even if quarterback plays not elite, they should always be able to run the ball They'll always have skill players that they can do different things with to get them the ball in space. That should make it easy on a college quarterback. And then defensively, they're going to be able to fly around. They're going to have a defensive line that's going to be relentless, and then a bunch of guys in the secondary that can run. And then you got guys like Jerome Baker. You gave Jerome Baker the ultimate compliment before we got on this morning. So if people haven't heard you say it before, I want you to tell people how you described Jerome Baker pre-show.
He's a werewolf.
It's awesome.
Non-human.
That's awesome.
I'm saying it's just the combination of ferociousness, speed, vision, just no one you want to be matched with, ever.
Made me think of the movie
so
Teen Wolf. When you said werewolf, made me think of Teen Wolf. I pictured Jerome Baker on his way to the shoe on top of a van.
Oh, yeah. After he finds his buddy's weed with his nose in the driver. Those are 80s movies at best. And then he gets with Booth in the 7 Minutes of Heaven in the closet. So you guys can Google that. I saw Teen Wolf in the theater. Great movie.
I love Teen Wolf, man.
Oh, it's great, man. It's great. Anyway. People, you should Google that. If you want to see a good cinematic tour de force, Michael J. Fox, and a true story of love and loss, check it out. No, but you're on point about Baker and the whole deal. The thing is, this is the statistic I keep coming back to that literally is staggering. Since Urban Meyer arrived at Ohio State, they haven't lost a road game.
I know, 20 in a row. Jeez, 20 in a row. They're going to 20 in a row going into
They haven't
State.
Lost a game on the road since he got here. If you would have told somebody the first 4 years of any coach arriving, hey, how's he going to do? He's not going to lose a road game for the first 4. That's an unrealistic statistic.
And a lot of
get
those
your brain around it.
A lot of those are night games, Dan, where the other place is jacked up. The atmosphere is just awesome. And, the home team has a lot to play off of. And Ohio State goes in there and zips it right up.
I mean, Ohio State's like Duke in that basketball, and that, every time Duke loses on the road, the court gets stormed. Every time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that'll happen at Ohio State or wherever we go and lose, if that ever happens. But I digress, but not much, because he brought up a good point. Night game last week against Wisconsin, night game this week against Penn State. You're as an expert on the Big Ten as anybody. What are your thoughts?
Well, Penn State's just not the same team they were 2 years ago when they played Ohio State at night. And I point to that game, and we've talked about it before, Dan. I think that Ohio State win at Penn State in overtime at night 2 years ago was the game that springboarded them to winning the national championship, because Penn State was such a physical defense that year. And the Big Ten was really physical that year. We talked about it. Michigan had a really good defense that year. They hit you hard. Michigan State hit hard that year. JT Barrett was amazing in that game up there. And then they beat Penn State at night against the hard-hitting top 10 defense. Ohio State was battle-tested going into the playoffs playing against those hard-hitting defenses. This Penn State defense isn't that. They've had a lot of injuries, particularly at linebacker. They're getting some key guys back. But, James Franklin said this week those guys aren't going to be able to play 60 snaps. Penn State will play hard. They're solid on defense right now. They're solid from a mentality standpoint. They're not a great defense from a overall production over 4 quarter standpoint. I think Ohio State should win comfortably in this game. I really don't see how it's close. I think the energy is going to get sucked out of there pretty quickly is my prediction for this one. Wisconsin, you knew they could hit. And anytime you have a hard-hitting defense, you have a chance to slow down a great team like Ohio State, or an Alabama or teams like that. Like Clemson hits hard as hell, so they were able to contain Lamar Jackson better than anyone else probably will be able to with that great defensive line. If you can hit hard, you got a shot. Wisconsin was a hard-hitting defense. I don't see Penn State bringing that kind of tone to the game. I got Ohio State comfortably. I think Ohio State covers, and the spread's like 19.5.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, especially after last week with what Ohio State allowed Corey Clement to do and then the negative press they've received since. I'll be very interested to see how they do on Saquon Barkley, who had a great game against them last year. So he's sub 100. They've gotten their job done. And the last question, which was asked after last week's show, or sometime this week specifically, it's a very common question right now. If Ohio State and Alabama met on a neutral field right now, what's your pick?
Real quick on Penn State, even last year, Penn State had a lot of NFL guys out there. You know, they weren't better than Ohio State, but you get NFL guys playing their ass off and they're hitting, you got a shot to hang in there. And with Saquon Barkley making a lot of plays that game, if I remember correctly, I never thought Ohio State was going to lose, but it wasn't in doubt for a while, right?
Yep.
Yeah, right. So,
fair enough.
So this year, Penn State don't have enough Jims and Joes to play Ohio State like that this year. But
they don't have a downfield passing game at all.
Last year they had a really good D line, you know. But anyway, Alabama, Ohio State. I mean, I give the edge to Ohio State because I like, you know, I give the edge to Ohio State because I think they're veteran at quarterback. But it's a toss-up, man. I mean, who, right? It's a toss-up.
I agree. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's just those two.
But Clemson's
and everybody
a toss-up too. No, I don't agree, man. Clemson just. So here's the thing. So Clemson, like Ohio State was a top 2 team last year, and they just lost the game. And so if Ohio State would have gotten to the playoffs last year, they would have turned it on. They would have played like they did against Michigan the rest of the way. Clemson is in that kind of cruise control mode right now for whatever reason. But if they get to the games that actually matter, they'll be what we expect them to be. So I put them in that mix also, in that those three teams I would take over anybody. And I would probably throw Washington in there. I'll put Washington 4 and Michigan 5 right now. Washington's quarterback is so good, and he doesn't make bad decisions. And their D-line is really good also. So, I would certainly go Alabama, Ohio State top 2, but I think Clemson and Washington could beat those teams. And I mean, obviously I think Michigan could too, but I would rank Michigan 5. I would make Michigan 5. It's going to be an exciting run, but those, I'm not going to say Alabama and Ohio State are clearly ahead of everybody, even though I like them the best. Because I think Clemson is as good as anybody. They're just not playing as well as Alabama or Ohio State right now, but they don't need to. They need to play as well as them in December and January, right? And they have the people to. Just like they just can't lose a game like Ohio State did last year because they'll turn it on. They'll be in the right frame of mind when it matters. My opinion.
I agree with you, but I will tell you this: the NC State game for them, for Clemson, went like the Michigan State game did for Ohio State last year.
And they won
it. They did lose on that last second field goal. The kid just missed. So I don't think they can afford to dance with the devil like that.
Hey, no question. But Ohio State looked sloppy in a lot of games last year.
No question. I'm with you.
You're pointing to the Michigan State game, but they were clearly at the end. They kicked the crap out of Michigan after they lost, and then they dominated Notre Dame, and so Ohio State would have been right there in that mix with Alabama and Clemson last year. And so Clemson just got to escape. They got to wake up, and maybe the NC State game will wake them up. Like, dang, we almost lost on a 31-yard field goal that would have put us to bed. So they got the dudes, is all I'm saying. They got the best D-line in college football, and there's some good D-lines out there. And then you have Watson, and so we'll see. But, yeah, we're in agreement Alabama and Ohio State are the top 2. I would pick Ohio State to beat Alabama right now, but I wouldn't have anything riding on it. And then I think Clemson, Washington, and Michigan are really good too.
There you have it, people. A lot to chew on there. Get here on the boards and let us hear what you think about Steve and I pontificating here for about 16 minutes. Have a great one, Bucknuts.
I love it. Yep, go Cubs. See ya. Go Pacers.